Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us this hour of World News. I'm Amarachi Ubani here in Lagos. Happening in Serbia today, opposition lawmakers and their supporters gathered in Novi and Belgrade, demonstrating against President Aleksandar Vucic's administration. Activists attempting to enter the court responsible for prosecuting cases related to the November 1st disaster in Novi Sad, 70 kilometers northwest of the capital, where 14 people were killed after a section of roofing at the entrance to a train station suddenly collapsed. In Belgrade, protesters sought to block one of the capital's main bridges. Serbian opposition politicians, activists and human rights groups have accused authorities loyal to Vucic and his Serbian Progressive Party of widespread corruption, ties to organized crime, nepotism and excessive bureaucracy. Staying with politics, but let's check in with the U.S. President-elect Donald Trump, who continues to put together his cabinet. Hours ago, he announced his latest picks from a World Wrestling Entertainment CEO and his transition co-chair, Linda McMahan, as his nominee for Education Secretary, and celebrity doctor and former TV host Mehmet Oz to lead Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. Known as a longtime Trump ally, McMahan led the Small Business Administration during Trump's first presidency and donated millions of dollars to his presidential campaign. Trump has criticized the Department of Education and has promised to close it down, a job McMahan could be tasked with after Trump returns to the White House in January. McMahan has little background in education, but she did serve on Connecticut State's Board of Education from 2009 until 2010. Oz, however, was selected to lead the CMS. He trained as a surgeon before finding fame on the Oprah Winfrey Show in the early 2000s. Oz has been criticized by experts for promoting what they call bad health advice about weight loss drugs and miracle cures, and suggested malaria drugs as a cure for COVID-19 in the early days of the pandemic. We're staying in the United States. Hip-hop mogul Sean Diddy Combs is currently in federal custody, awaiting trial on charges of racketeering and sex trafficking. His arrest in New York came amid a series of civil suits alleging sexual assault and physical violence going back to the 1990s. And more than 24 people have filed lawsuits against the rapper, accusing him of using his influence in the entertainment industry to do everything from drugging, assaulting, and raping people. The latest batch of lawsuits include allegations from 2 men who were underage at the time of the alleged assault, both describing being hopeful that Mr. Combs could help jumpstart their careers in the entertainment industry. The Harlem-born rapper has denied all the allegations, both those laid out in the lawsuits and his federal indictment. The summit of G20 countries has ended, with South Africa receiving the baton of presidency of the group. After resuming the rotating presidency, President Cyril Ramaphosa vowed to harness global collective energy to confront challenges and exploit opportunities. He received the G20 gavel from his outgoing Brazilian counterpart, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, during the closing ceremony in Rio.
South Africa firmly believes that civil society serves as a bridge between the G20 leaders and the people who have the greatest interest in the deliberations that we've been having here, the ordinary people of the world. We will continue as South Africa with this innovative platform for engagement during South Africa's presidency of the G20. This practice is very much in line with our traditions as South Africa to involve civil society formations in all matters of importance to the people of our country. South Africa will seek to harness global collective challenges that we all face as the world, but also to exploit various opportunities that abound. The G20 presidency theme of solidarity, equality, and sustainability. This hopefully will help us address the challenges that the world faces and exploit the myriad opportunities that are also there. In line with this theme, we will seek to strengthen and advance our common pursuit of sustainable development goals and also the attainment of what we decided at the last United Nations General Assembly in the form of the Pact of the Future. The achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030 must be a priority for the next 5 presidencies of the G20.
And just pointed out, South Africa has become the first African nation to preside over the G20. Well, today is World Children's Day, a day of global action for children by the UN Children Agency, UNICEF. It commemorates the anniversary of the UN General Assembly's adoption of the Declaration and Convention on Children's Rights on November 20, 1959 and 1989, respectively. Consequently, the United Nations celebrates World Children's Day and strives to raise awareness about issues such as education inequity, child labor, ending violence against children, and access to health care, are also urging worldwide action to address these concerns. In doing this, the United Nations Deputy Secretary General Amina Mohammed recently called on the world to be courageous in fulfilling the promise of ending violence against children by 2030.
I'll never forget the 15 young girls from Sudan that I met in August this year, who have lived through and continue to try to survive the horrors and the lasting trauma of violence and rape in their country. I was also inspired by their courage, their conviction as they set about rebuilding their lives, ready to take on their futures. It is time we emulate that courage and we fulfill the promise that we've made to end violence against children by 2030. It's the very least that we can do to help heal their egregious wounds. The transformative vision of the 2030 Agenda gives us a genuine pathway. So far, we're off track from our goal for many reasons, but this is not the time to let despair paralyze us. There is hope. Ending violence against children is within our grasp. Powerful examples of action by states, by civil society, and other stakeholders demonstrate that change is possible. We see countries transform political promises into robust legal and policy frameworks. We see increased investments in services to nurture and heal families and children. And we see the digital environment offering opportunities. We must maximize these benefits while minimizing the risk to children online. The recently adopted Global Digital Compact provides a crucial framework for achieving just that. Across communities, religious and civic leaders are also promoting positive social norms that safeguard our children. We see relentless efforts of civil society in both advocacy and service provision at the lowest levels to children and their families. We see the private sector increasingly assuming its role in nurturing safe environments for children.
Welcome back to The World Today. In continuation of our celebration of World Children's Day, my colleague Layo Olarinde had a chat with child rights advocate Lola Alonge on the situation in Nigeria and the path to creating a better future for children in the country.
I'm happy there's a day set aside like this, World Children's Day. And of course, we have the National Children's Day, which we normally celebrate in Nigeria, and I think May 27th. How far have we fared? I think I normally feel a little bit bad and sad whenever we're talking about children and the state of children, especially in Nigeria. We have the Child Rights Act, which has been domesticated in about 34 states out of 36 states. I think that is progress, and that is good news. We have states like Zamfara and Kano are yet to domesticate the Child Rights Act. And I think this is a wake-up call for them. So please join others and let us know we have laws in place to protect our children. But in spite of all that, I think it's just all talk. This is the time for action. Today is World Children's Day, and of course, we normally celebrate our Children's Day nationally as well. But when we look at issues like education, issues like health, violence against children, I think we are yet to really protect our children. Let's start with education, for example. The statistics we have now shows that about 18.5 million children are out of school. 60% of them are girls. And I'm also aware that 15% of out-of-school children globally are in Nigeria, which means 34 states have laws in place, but they are not enforcing it in the area of the right to education. So we need to look at how government can show more commitment, states, even at the local level, community leaders, everyone come on board, including non-governmental organizations, and see how we can enforce the laws. Now we have laws, but is there any action? No. It's really sad, because when children are supposed to be in school, they're talking about cases like either child marriage, or they're on the street hawking, or they're sleeping under the bridge, or they are being, maybe child labor, which means we have not fared well in the area of education. Then talking about violence against children as well, I also feel very sad when I see abuse, cases of abuse. There was a case of abuse that I experienced and saw the effect yesterday. A mother got annoyed and poured hot water on her child. And it was like a terrible thing. And I think we need to do a lot more. Then looking at cases like health, right to health again. Every child has a right to good health. Starting with nutrition. The situation in the country is not even the best now. The purchasing power is very low. And the children are affected mostly, which means that there's need for more support. Then we look at cases like abuse, cases like not having the right to do what they want to do or go to school and things like that. So I think we've not done too well in Nigeria.
Child rights advocate Lola Alonge with my colleague Layo Olarinde. With a new negotiating text promised by tomorrow morning, developing countries are urging the COP29 presidency to ensure the climate conference in Baku, Azerbaijan provides adequate financing that will help them fight the impacts of climate change. African negotiators are calling for an ambitious new climate finance target of $1.3 trillion annually by 2030, reflecting the scale of the continent's needs and the $3 trillion estimated to implement its nationally determined contributions. On the sidelines of the conference, the Federal Ministry of Regional Development also canvassed for investments at COP29. Our correspondent Ayola Kasim has more.
Delegates, good morning.
The urgency for action by the delegates here in Baku has never been clearer, with 2024 on track to be the hottest year on record.
2nd of November.
The presidency's stocktake heard from the ministerial pairs who are consulting with parties and major groups on the technical aspects of the talks that are causing a major rift. Disagreements over money matters were a common thread.
We've heard three different proposals for the provided quantum of 900 billion, 600 billion and 440 billion. Others have mentioned a floor of US 100 billion with linkages to the contributor-based resolution, as well as sources and structure. Now, of course, many mentioned that it's important that whatever figure we land on, it be both ambitious and achievable.
As climate finance negotiators push for a breakthrough, the COP29 lead negotiator reminded all that now the hardest part begins and hopes to release the latest text by early morning on Thursday.
But I want to clarify that these texts are not final. They will be open for input and discussion, and we will continue to listen. Based on inputs from the parties, there may be elements in the final text that are not in these drafts.
Developing country blocs, including the African Group of Negotiators, 77 plus China, and the like-minded developing countries urged the presidency to bring back balance into the process. When asked about the rumored $200 billion for the new collective quantified goal being proposed, the response was,
Is it a joke? saw the adaptation gap report that said that the gap for meeting adaptation needs of developing countries is up to 400 billion. So when the figure that you mentioned, 200, that's why colleagues are asking, is it a joke? If it cannot even respond to the gap on adaptation, let alone other things, that we take it as a very big joke indeed.
Meanwhile, in the delegation pavilions, the Federal Ministry of Regional Development discussed the need to foster regional synergies for the climate resilience and inclusive development in Nigeria.
Because we have also outlined the problems, we are seeing the challenges, and also action plan to mitigate the effects. So all of this require money, and of course, this is the best place where we can canvas that support from international investors.
The COP president intends to wrap everything up by Friday, but many are accusing him of a rushed approach without transparency. So far, the talks have failed to move forward as expected. From the Olympic Stadium, the venue of COP29 in Baku, Azerbaijan, Ayola Kasim, Channels Television News.
The U.S. President Joe Biden is 82 today. He is in his final months of his presidency at the White House. Biden recently attended his last G20 summit in Rio de Janeiro, where world leaders tackled on agenda that reflected a shifting global order trying to shore up multilateral consensus before U.S. President-elect Donald Trump returns to power in January. Russia has transferred more than 70 animals, including an African lion and 2 brown bears, to a zoo in the North Korean capital, Pyongyang, from Moscow Zoo, according to the government. The animals were a gift from President Vladimir Putin to the Korean people. Russia's Natural Resources Minister Alexander Kozlov, who oversaw the relocation of the animals, who were transported by plane to the Pyongyang Central Zoo, accompanied by veterinarians from the Moscow Zoo. These pictures we're looking at were published by the Russian government, showing a white cockatoo traveling in a crate and Kozlov receiving a tour of the Korean Zoo from local officials. That's the world today. Thanks for watching. I'm Ranchi.